Hey, welcome to the Gig Life podcast. I'm your host, Stevie Taylor. I hope you're good. Now, before we rip into this episode, I just want to make a call out to any brands, companies, organisations that would be interested in working with me in sponsoring or supporting the Gig Life podcast. If you have something that you'd like to promote or sell that will reach hundreds of unique people per week, thousands per month through this podcast, please hit me up. If you know somebody, point them my way. Send me an email on thegiglifepodcast@gmail.com or get in touch via my socials. Alternatively, if you dig it, you can donate or leave a tip for the Gig Life podcast. Click on the link in the show notes or go to thegiglifepodcast.com. Okay, this is episode 111. Dan Kerby, here we go. My guest today is Dan Kerby. DK is a session drummer and educator based in Melbourne, Australia. Dan currently plays drums for some of Australia's most iconic acts, including Bliss N Eso, 28 Days, Behind Crimson Eyes, Esoterik, and most recently, San Diego punk rock legends Unwritten Law. Dan is the owner and operator of one of Melbourne's premium drum schools, DK Drums Academy. He works for Monster, and he also co-hosts a drumming travel show called Drumlife with his friend Frank Zummo, drummer for Canadian rockers Sum 41. So let's rip in. In the words of DK, it's go time. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Mr. Dan Kerby. I think we're rolling. Now, happy Valentine's Day and welcome to the Gig Life podcast. Dan Kerby, how you going, DK?
Mate, fantastic. Happy Valentine's Day to you. And, mate, what a way to kick it off.
Yeah, looking at a couple of good-looking fellas. I don't know about me, but... yeah, what's going on, man? Yeah, you're in the middle of this sort of snap 5-day lockdown in Melbourne at the moment. So...
Yep.
Has that affected you too much?
Well, not so much, mate. I was meant to teach yesterday. I just ended up doing a couple of online sessions, and Tuesdays I have all online students, so I'll just kind of carry on as per usual. Just gives me a chance to work on some stuff that I've been needing to do, to be honest. So like 5 days for me is not too bad. Yeah, it sucks for a lot of businesses and whatnot, but you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, it's for me, mate. It's 5 days. I'm just coming in to my studio and just going for it all day. It's great.
Yeah,
I don't mind
awesome.
it. Yeah, it's cool.
Well, let's talk about the first major lockdown and COVID and what you had in the pipeline. Did you have sort of tours lined up or?
Yeah, I mean, I play drums for Bliss N Eso as a session guy, so they've got music ready to go and really tours and whatnot ready to go. But obviously that's not happening quite at the moment, the tour side of things. So that's kind of been pushed aside. That show that I sent you, the Drumlife show with Frank Zummo, we were meant to be releasing that this year through a drum company. And we were supposed to have a whole bunch more episodes done in 2020. But obviously we couldn't do that because a traveling drum show is not happening in 2020, unfortunately. So, a couple of things happened there. But that's okay, mate. You know, we're pushing forward with that show, and we're hoping that we'll be able to do more of that over the next couple of years. But if not, mate, we'll just get creative and do bloody, you know, something different.
Whatever.
Yeah, mate, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
There's always something cool to do. So that's cool. And the Bliss N Eso stuff, I mean, that will happen when it can. So, you know, we're ready to go.
You guys did end up, you played a show up in Darwin, I think, in December?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did. So, you know, Darwin obviously had no restrictions at that point. And really the stars aligned, because I think as a Victorian, I only made it into their border by like a week maybe, because Melbourne was a hot spot for the Northern Territory for months and months and months, even when we were open and everything was going well. You know, but the border, you know, it was fine by the time I got there. Maybe a week before it kind of unlocked and it was sweet. So I flew to Sydney to practice with Bliss N Eso. Then we flew to Darwin, played a gig up there. It was a great gig, festival out kind of by the water there. And it was cool, man, because it was the first gig we'd done in ages and there was no restrictions, a few thousand people just going crazy. Yeah. It was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you have to come back and lock it down again. It's kind of like the dangling little carrots, and you have a bite and they take it away from you again.
I know. But, mate, I've been talking to the guys, you know, Frank Zummo and stuff from the drum show, and, you know, it's pretty grim over in the States at the minute. There's nothing like that going on over there. So, like, at least here we're kind of tinkering on the edge of things happening, you know, and we've got some of those outdoor concerts like the Sydney Music My Bowls, got little booths now. So there's still things happening. I've got a gig with 28 Days in April at the Espy in Melbourne, which is capacity is like, I think it's normally 800, but it's capped at 250. So it's starting.
That's still pretty. Yeah, that's a pretty cool crowd. I mean, you can imagine those 250 people. They're going to be all in.
They're all in, mate, and I guarantee they're not all socially distancing. They're just bloody up the front going for it. So
that's right.
You know, it's good. Like, people are trying to get it going here as best they can. So it's cool. It's cool. We're pretty lucky.
Yeah, that is cool. We'll talk more about the Drumlife thing with Frank Zummo a little bit later, and you know, and maybe some more detail into, you know, Bliss N Eso and 28 Days and some of the other stuff that you're playing with. All right, I thought what we might do now is roll it right back to the beginning, how it all began. Yeah. Little DK. Now I know your father was a drummer.
Yes, he was. Yes.
Yep. And I'm not sure about the rest of your family. I mean, you got two brothers?
I've got one brother.
One brother. Okay.
It would be very easy for someone to think that I have more brothers because I call all of my friends brother. So I often see people at the drum.
I know what you mean too, because being a New Zealander, everyone's my bro.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'll go to the gym and I'll post up great workout with my brother, and then I'll see someone that kind of knows me and they'll be like, "Geez, your brother's muscly." Yeah. You know, I'm like, no, it's not my brother. But yeah, I've got one brother. He plays guitar. And sings a little bit, and he's a principal at the minute. He's just become a principal. But yeah, my dad was a drum teacher, a drummer. He taught drums for a good 40, 50 years. Like he taught drums from maybe his 20s to pretty much 69. Like he passed away a couple of years ago. He's teaching all the way up to then. So yeah, the drum teaching, drumming's just, you know, it was a natural thing for me because I just grew up around him. He was just playing gigs and I'd go to his sound checks. I'd see him playing drums out in the shed. We lived in Ballarat, rural Victoria. We had a big shed out the back and his kit was in there. So I always had a kit to play. It was an old Sonar. I've still got it actually. Cool. And I really want to and do that up a little bit because I think it would be nice to just kind of do that up. But yeah, he never really took care of his gear. He had this epic Sonar kit and nice cymbals and stuff, but it was just like they just throw it in the trailer, no cases, it would all be banged up. Right. And he always said he liked it was all about the sound of the drums, not how they looked. So he was all about that, and that used to give me the shits, mate, because I used to want to play. When I started playing gigs, I'd play his kit and I'd pull it into gigs and it would look like shit, but it would sound nice. Which, you know, isn't the main thing, I guess. But yeah, mate. So I started when I was literally 2-3 years old, just banging on his drums, and he kind of just guided me along the way, which I was lucky to have.
Your dad, he started off as a singer too, didn't he?
Yeah, he was a singer. Yeah. How do you know that?
Hey man, I'm a Jedi. I'm a Jedi.
Oh, whoa! Yeah, he started off as a singer. That's incredible that you know that. That's well done. First and foremost, well done. That's impressive research.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, that's insane. Yeah, he was a singer, and then he was a drummer, and then he would sing and play the drums. And then he was in a local band in Ballarat, which were really good. But then he played on TV. He played on Channel 9. It was like a Saturday night show on I guess the networks had smaller kind of community networks back then. He was on like the Ballarat Channel 9 network. They had their own kind of local stations back then as opposed to big national ones. They probably had both, I'm not sure. But, yeah, locally he was on TV every Saturday night with Daryl Summers, who used to host Hey Hey Saturday, yeah. So that was pretty. I mean, that was a pretty sick gig for him to have.
Yeah,
yeah.
So what? Do you remember some of the first stuff that he? So first and foremost, was he there to teach you drums, or was it like, all right, son, there's my drums, just go and have a bang around, and when you're ready,
yeah. A little bit of both, a little bit of like, just hold it like this. He would kind of just let me go, but then just guide me. If I was doing anything horrifically wrong, he'd step in, or he'd show me things, actually. He'd show me things every time I'd see him from when I was 2 to when I was 30, he would show me something, He'd be like, oh, I've got this cool beat, or have a look at this, or see if you can play this, like just stuff that he was working on, which was pretty cool, or he'd show me, nice drum work from drummers, or, he loved arranging songs in his later years. So he would just sit in his study and listen to name like any song that he was into, and he would just pull it apart and arrange it for his bands to play. So he would do all the guitar parts, the piano parts, the vocal parts, chart it all out. And that's literally all he did. He just loved that stuff. And he'd just show me like cool chords and cool chord structures and things like that. He's a very talented musician, more so probably better overall musician than a drummer. He was kind of broad across being a good musician, as opposed to just a drummer, which was cool.
Who were some of the early drummers that he introduced you to, or some of his favourite drummers? Yeah,
like your Dave Weckles, your Steve Gadds. Like he loved Steve Gadd. He kind of loved Steve. Steve Gadd's really kind of tasteful and articulate with his playing and really clean. He loved a lot of that stuff. So I grew up playing a lot of that stuff. Dave Garibaldi. I remember his drum course just had these names that would appear in it, Steve Gadd ideas, Dave Weckle ideas, Dave Weckle Phil. A lot of that. The Dave Garibaldi stuff, that would have been all the linear drumming. Yeah, linear drumming. Yeah. That's so sick.
Future sounds and that kind of stuff.
I love that stuff.
I've got that book around here somewhere. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. So there's a lot of that, which was cool, because it wasn't stuff that I really listened to, as a kid. But in terms of drumming, I kind of knew a lot of it just from the sheets he would give me to work on. Yep.
So who were some of the drummers or the types of music that that was catching your ear that you were starting to listen to around that time?
Well, I didn't really pay attention to music and bands really until I was in year 7. Like all through primary school, I would just play the drums because I liked drums, and I would just work through his course, and I would just try to see how far I could get. Pretty much, I'd like the drums. I'd just sit in there. I knew that drums were in bands and stuff, but I didn't really think about it too much. I just played. And then, when I got to high school, I met some cool kids that were into punk rock, and then started kind of putting together bands and stuff. So I've kind of gone off track with that question. I think the first bands that I got into were like Blink-182, Nirvana. We played a little bit of Hey Joe from Jimi Hendrix. So I was just kind of starting to figure out that drums were in this type of music, and that drum part is an achievable drum part for me to play. I can potentially play that with my friends. And then I started diving more into bands and stuff from there. Yeah. Does that make sense? Kind of
yeah,
thing?
man, totally. Yep, 100%. 100%. And let's talk about some of your early bands then. And or for a start, do you remember your first ever paid gig?
Oh, yeah. Well, I kind of roughly do. It was a high school band, and we would play at a pub locally. So we were probably 15. It was dodgy as like we were 15 years old. We would go down to this pub on Sundays. This pub owner would give us the Sunday session, and we would like bring 100 kids down there, and it was like 16-year-olds getting lit, vomiting and stuff. And we were like playing gigs, but we'd get like, you know, $150 or something like that for the whole band. Then we did a lot of underage gigs back then in regional Victoria. I don't know if it still really occurs that much, but there was like Freezer, and there was some really good underage venues in Ballarat. It was all kind of punk rock music, and we'd play. I don't even know if we'd get paid though, to be honest. It wasn't really until I was probably like 20 that my band actually would pull numbers to proper venues. Like you might get 200 people, it's $10 a ticket. And you'd walk out of the gig and go, shit, we've got $2,000.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that wasn't really until, it was, not much money until then. Still isn't that much money, to be honest, but, you know.
How far into that did you have the realization that you wanted to do music for a living? You wanted to make money and... Or did that kind of come later? Did you end up getting into some other type of career and then dropping back into music?
Yeah. I knew from when I was 12.
Yep.
I knew from when I was 12. I saw Blink-182, Body Jar and Motor Race at Rodlaver Arena. Caught a bus there. My dad took me to the bus stop, me and my best mate, and my brother went down. First real concert. Just like blew my mind, like, because that was the first band I was really into, and I was just listening to them. I thought none of my friends really listened to them. It was just me and the boys in the band, and I kind of just thought it was like this little niche little thing that we were into. And then catching a bus to Melbourne, going to an arena, and there's 15,000 people just like you that have been listening to this band. It was an eye opener. I was like, holy shit, this is big. This is something. And you're looking at all the other kids, what they're wearing. There's heaps of cooler kids than you. They've got all the merch and shit. And you're like, fuck, this is massive. And then, you know, watching the band play, the lights, the huge sound, Travis Barker just going ape shit on the drums. It was just like, holy shit, this is insane. And I was like, I want to do that. And then that was kind of when I put it all together, that drums, everything that I'd done as a kid for fun, can be this crazy, cool, energetic, fun. It can be massive. People love it. That was pretty much it.
What era of Blink 182 was that? Was that around Enema of the State era, or a little bit?
Enema of the State.
Okay,
yeah,
so
I just gotten into them in my band. We were covering All the Small Things. That was one of the first songs we ever played. And I guess at that point, I wasn't really into any drummers in particular. I'd never really saw, like, I knew there was cool drummers and you see cool drum solos and stuff, but there was never really anyone as a kid that I saw that I was like, wow, that guy's awesome and he's cool and he's just so entertaining to watch. And that's when I kind of fell in love with drumming and like Travis Barker and that kind of style of drumming. You know, he was the first guy that I saw. I was like, holy shit, this is something else. It's not just sitting there playing. Like he's like working out behind the drum kit as well. Yeah, you putting on a crazy show.
You would have seen the videos of his warm-ups, his backstage warm-ups.
Yeah.
That's something else. That's high endurance. That's aerobic, man. He's like... He's going hard. He's amazing, incredible.
Yeah, he is. Yeah. He's unreal. So, mate, that was when I saw that and I was like, far out. I want to be doing this.
Yeah. So what was the next step then? You leave that concert.
Yeah. So the next step, the next step was we took our band very seriously. It was me and the singer. We were like kids. We were 12. We took it very, very seriously. We'd practice all the time. My dad would come in and teach us song structure, how arrangements work. Like, you know, you've got a bass player, you've got a rhythm guitarist, you need a good lead guitarist. This is how the instruments work together. You know, we worked really hard at that. Local gigs, trying to play with bigger bands, all that kind of stuff. We literally did that from when we were 12 to like 2021. I did it with the same guy. And as we progressed, we'd get new members in because members would be, you know, like, we would like sack members, bro. When we were teenagers, we took it so seriously. We were like, "No, he's not up to scratch. Sack him." And we sack him and get like,
savage,
bro. We were dead set. We were savage, and you know, it's you know. And then I'd go and see other bands when I became more of a teenager, as just a kid. You know, we'd go to Festival Hall and watch bands, and I remember, you know, Australian bands would support. I think I saw Blink there years later, and Gyroscope was supporting. I remember I might have been 15 or 16 just watching that at Festival Hall, being from the country still, and just going, shit, how do you get from being a band at high school when no one comes to your gig to playing on a stage like that? Like, what's the process? Like, what's the in-between steps that you got to take to kind of to make that happen? I remember being baffled by it because it seemed so far-fetched at that point. Mate, and then it was just a continuous grind with that band. We would do local gigs in Ballarat, and we'd always pull good numbers, and we'd just get our mates down there and put on a bit of a show, but we'd always get a couple of hundred people down there. And then we started getting good, and then we started playing with some of the bands that were touring, like the Triple J bands. We would often get put on the gig because, you know, if they needed to sell another 100 tickets, they'd just get the local band that brings 100, 150 people. So we'd end up getting a lot of gigs that way, and then mingling with the bigger bands and seeing how they do it and learning how they do it. You know, oh, they got a booking agent. Oh, fuck, who's the booking agent? Okay, who do they book? Oh, they book these bands. Oh, shit, maybe we need a booking agent. How good would it be if we had that? Oh, we got to record an EP. Oh, who's the good producer? And then you'd look up those bands, who they work with, and then you'd book in with them, and then we did an EP with a guy called Cal Tonyma, who did like Body Jar and 28 Days, those kind of bands at the time. And then you'd pick up some knowledge from him. He taught me how to use Pro Tools. So it's just bit by bit by bit by bit by bit. And then that eventually got me into Behind Crimson Eyes because my local band was supporting Behind Crimson Eyes and they didn't have a drummer. I wrote to their booking agent and said, who's playing drums? And he's like, we don't know yet. I said, but I'll do it. And I'd already done a drum video because I remember getting frustrated because I felt like I was drumming pretty well, but we just weren't really getting anywhere. And I was like, nah. So I put together this cool drum video, hired out a studio, and I played like hip hop, reggae, and like marching drums. And I was not necessarily great at any of them, but it was a pretty cool video. I literally spent a couple of months working on it. I stole some chops from Aaron Spears and kind of just learned how to do them as best I could. So I was like, fuck, if I put that in there, the drummer's going to be like, shit, that's not bad for a 20-year-old kid. So anyway, I had that video done. I sent that off to BCE, and that's kind of how I got that gig pretty much.
Is that video on YouTube?
Yeah, it is. It's, I reckon if you looked up Dan Kerby, Perfect Reason was the name of my band, maybe it would pop up, or Dan Kerby Behind Crimson Eyes, it would pop up. Let me have a look. Dan Kerby Perfect Reason, it's the first one that pops up. Drum solo at Studio One.
Okay.
Studio One's where we recorded our first EP with Cal Tonyma, and I think Joe Camilleri or someone cool used to own it, and now I think Chris Cheney from the Living End owns it.
Let's just have a listen. Can you hear that?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Oh, yeah.
You got those cymbals up high, eh? Right up here.
Yeah.
That's really cool. I'll put a link to the rest of that in the show notes so people can check that
Yeah,
out.
absolutely. It starts getting good at that bit.
Okay. We'll make people go and watch it.
Yeah.
Watch it.
So yeah, I mean, that's, you can tell by the audio quality and stuff, it's pretty old. But yeah, that kind of was the first drum video I ever did. And mate, I wish I kept doing them because no one was really doing them back then. There was like not much of it online really.
Yeah. I had Stan Bicknell on the show during the week, and we were talking about his some of the first drum cover videos he did. Yep. And he was doing it at around a time where I mean you look at it now, there's thousands of them, and the algorithms get so full on that you don't kind of get that sort of coverage, But I think back in that time it wasn't. You're right, it wasn't getting done that much.
It wasn't. It was like I think, man, like Aaron Spears had done one for Usher. That was like a clip that kind of made its way around the net. There wasn't really much going on, like cover-wise. I don't even know if anything was going on, That was kind of a concept that came a bit later. But anyway, it was it's just doing something. The cool thing about that was I did that for no particular reason. I just did it to kind of showcase my playing, and then it led to me getting gigs. So it's like proactive always wins.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So when did you start taking a bit of a leadership role in the bands that you were like? Were you kind of band leader type thing? I'm just trying to work towards
definitely
how you've got your confidence and your drive and your business savvy. I'm trying to work up to that. So
So definitely there was myself and the singer from my first band. We were the two ones that would drive it, and we'd just bounce off each other. We had a great friendship and a great partnership, and we both kind of vibrated on the same frequencies and had the same visions. And that was a massive part of my development. And I think that's having someone else like that is probably one of the most important things you can have, because if it's just you, it would drive you mental, or I'd have to just do my own thing. I really need to kind of be on the same wave as someone in one of the band, at least one person in each band to really push it, because there's different levels of commitment and work ethic and just drive and what everyone wants. It's one of the hardest things about being in a band I've found just throughout life is just finding members that are on the same page.
And the other thing is, I understand what you're saying there. You find one other person that's on your level, on your bandwidth, but the other part of that too is the other guys, they need to respect that. I mean, and it's cool to kind of be on those tiers, but understand where your spot is in the band and be cool with that. And that'll give you longevity. But if you're the guy down here fighting against the guys that are having the ideas at the top, I mean, it's dead in the water, eh? As I've seen it so many times in bands that I've played in.
It's really hard, man. A lot of people have problems with band members and stuff. I'm lucky now. Everyone in the bands I'm in is cool. And like 28 Days, for example, are just a bunch of mates. That's 28 Days is a bunch of mates who just play music, and they're really good. And that's why they're all still the same members, because they're just cool. There's no one with ego or anything really in that case. That's an interesting one, because everyone kind of just plays their part and everyone's kind of driving that. But yeah, in the earlier band stuff, it was definitely myself and the singer. We were going hard at that. And now he's like a very successful gym owner. He owns a franchise of gyms and stuff. And it was interesting for me to have that relationship with him, with the music, and then watch him go off, change lanes into a different industry, but keep the same energy and thought process and whatnot, and drive and be successful in a different field. You know what I mean? It's all it all starts with that energy and drive. I think that's a massive part of it.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so you've made that video and you've sent it off. You notice that there's not a drum spot for, is it Crimson Eyes? Is that
behind Crimson Eyes? Yep,
behind Crimson Eyes. So right, so you send the video off.
Yep.
What happens then? Do they call you back and said, "Yeah, man, we want you in"?
So basically what they were doing at that point in time, they were playing shows in New South Wales and shows in Victoria, and they were doing like residencies. They were doing these kind of, pretty weird now, but they were doing like, you know, a week in New South Wales, a week in Vic, a week in New South Wales, a week in Vic, or something like that. And they had a guy in New South Wales that was doing the New South Wales stuff, and then I was going to do the Victorian stuff. And I was a big fan, actually, of their drummer before he left. He was probably my favourite drummer in Australia at that point in time. His name was Cam Gilmore, and I actually saw Behind Crimson Eyes. I went and watched them when they came to my town, and I was blown away by their drummer. And the reason I was blown away back then was as simple as, A, what he was playing was really, really cool. Like he was fast, he was intricate, it was different, it was quite complicated. 2, he was super energetic and very showman. You know, he was a great showman. And 3, like back then, like he was playing to a click. There was triggers going off. It was a full-on pro show. It was just a step up from kind of where I was at with my band at the time. And I just remember being extremely impressed by that. Like because I didn't play to a click till I was a bit older, till I was probably 17 or 18. Mm-hmm. Then I started realizing that these guys that were freak players were doing it to a click at the same time and holding the band together. And I was like, holy shit, that's a whole nother couple of levels of difficulty there. But anyway, so he left. Sent them the video and they basically liked it. They sent me a whole bunch of songs to learn, 2 different albums. I learned their newest stuff first, and their newer album, I didn't really know it at the time, but it was their easier album. It was a rock album. So I was learning the songs. I had like a week to learn them, learning the rock songs, just going, this is easy. Like maybe that Cam guy wasn't as crazy good as I thought he was, you know, his drum parts. But then I got to the album before that, which was called A Revelation for Despair, and it was insane, the drum parts. I was like, oh my God, how am I going to learn these in a few days? This is ridiculous. And the reason it was ridiculous, like the verses and the choruses, they weren't really repetitive loops. They were, verse 1 was its own kind of beat, then there was a different beat in the chorus, and then verse 2 was different to verse 1. The second bit, like it was all kind of just like, it wasn't really repetitive, which is important when you got to learn songs fast. So man, it was hard. It was bloody hard. I remember I hired out a room to practice, and I just remember sitting in there, like with my hands on my head like this at one point, just going, I'm stuffed here. I'm done.
What have I done?
Yeah, I've cooked it. But anyway, I ended up kind of getting it, and then it led to me joining the band.
Yeah, that's cool. Was it super? Like you were talking about how the verse 1, verse 2 were different.
Mm-hmm.
Did it matter that much to the, like, did you, when you learnt the stuff and went back to rehearsal or whatever, was it picked on if you missed any of the stuff that the other guy played, or were they kind of cool for you to do your little take on it?
Not really. I wouldn't say it was picked on, but I did go over it a lot, and I pretty much went in and played it. There was maybe a couple of things, a couple of little fills and stuff that I just do naturally different to their old drummer, but for the most part, all the important stuff, the accents and making sure, you know, the kicks following the bass parts or whatever it may be, I made sure I covered all of that stuff really well. And then it wasn't really picked on. I was super intimidated going to practice. Yeah. We actually practiced here. I'm at Kindred Studios, which is where my drum school's at. We practiced a couple of rooms down, and I remember just shitting my pants basically before I rocked up to practice, but everyone was cool, and it was also a shock because they were so good as well. Like I remember specifically the bass player Garth, he was so good at bass. Like he was the first bass player kind of where I could feel the bass. Like it wasn't kind of something sitting in the background. It was like in your face, and he was punching the rhythms hard with my kick and stuff. And I was like, Jesus Christ.
Keep up, boy.
Yeah. I was like, wow. So they were like better than me really at that point. You know, I felt like they were better musicians. So it made me get better. That was probably one of the biggest leaps I ever had as a drummer was going from the local band into that band. The jump of the playing and the skill level and the professionalism and how tight it has to be. That was a big jump there. It was probably the biggest one I've ever had.
So the the school band, how did that end? Had that already dissolved and then you went looking for this Behind Crimson Eyes? Hang on, let me say, fuck.
Behind
Every time
Crimson
I
Eyes,
tried,
it's a tongue twister.
it's just the crimson. There you go.
Yeah. So that kind of, we all lived together. So we went from high school band, me and the singer, moved through different members throughout different times, ended up in Melbourne living together in a house. We got a cool guy bass player to come in. We had a great guitarist come in. So we ended up kind of with a really good lineup. But at that time, the singer was kind of talking about changing careers and going into fitness. And I was looking at doing Behind Crimson Eyes. So there was that. It kind of, at the same time, the two main guys kind of went their different ways. Yeah. And that was pretty much what happened, really. But it both worked out for us, and we're still best mates. So it wasn't a weird thing. It felt like a bit of a weird thing at the time, you know, but it was perfect. It worked out perfectly for both of us.
Cool. So I'm going to call it BCE now because it's easier to say than Behind Crimson.
Oh yeah, BCE. Do BCE.
BCE. Can we go with that? You cool with it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So BCE. How long did you do that for, and what was next after that? How did that sort of end? What was the next opportunity?
So BCE, I see, it's an interesting one because I joined that band kind of it was really the tail end of them kind of going for it. They were with Roadrunner Records when I joined. They just lost their deal with Roadrunner, I think. The singer was a bit over it, Josh. We kind of did a few tours after that around Oz. And we just kind of didn't really do much for a while, for years actually. And then kind of only a couple of years ago, we did a tour with Alexis on Fire and we played Unified. We do gigs here and there, but we never really went full ham again. Just because everyone kind of grew up a little bit and things changed, I guess, you know, which was very disappointing for me, to be honest. Like I came into that band and
thought that was it. This is the one.
Oh mate, I left uni. I was like, I'm going for it.
Shit.
Like, yeah. I was like, yeah, it's time to go. But you know, a couple of members are always keen to go, and then some harder to kind of get back into it. But I did that for a couple of years, I guess, and then 28 Days had their drummer, you know, the drumming position become available for that, and I'd played with 28 Days with Behind Crimson Eyes. We did a tour together, so they invited me into that, which was cool.
That's cool.
I've been with them ever since.
That's cool. Well, let's just go back. You said you finished up uni there, so let's talk about school and what you did at uni and what was your major, or what were you aiming for there? Yeah, what were you working on?
Yeah. So mate, I was studying town planning at RMIT University in Melbourne. So I did pretty well in year 12. Took a year off. I think I worked and then got into uni, you know, when I was 20 or 19. I did 2.5 years of town planning, and the deal was my parents would pay for my rent in Melbourne if I went to uni, but I was living with my band, my Ballarat band. So I was like, okay, well, I'll just go to uni. I'll just kind of like pass it.
So you weren't that keen on it, obviously.
Not really, man. Not at all. Like my dad was just like, you know, town planners get paid well. There's lots of jobs in it. It'd be a good job. You should do town planning. I was like, I just wanted to play drums really, but I didn't really think it was an option. So yeah, I kind of did that, and then it just kind of fizzled. I wasn't putting the work in, man. Like by the time you get to third year at town planning, the assignments are like, okay, we want you to design RMIT's new building, right? And the night before, I'd sketch up this shocking, like an A4 shocking bit of architecture work by me. And then I got to class, and like people had like those massive books, and they'd done 3D
CAD drawings.
They've done like all this crazy shit, and I just had a crap bit of A4 paper, and you know, I think the writing was on the wall when I rocked up to that class.
Yeah. All right, so school's done, uni's done. Well, what about jobs in between jobs there? What other work were you doing to sort of pay bills? And
first job was in a juice bar in Ballarat.
Mm-hmm.
Then I worked at Telstra for a year in the call centre, and I did that to save up to buy a drum kit.
Oh, you're one of them. You're one of them.
I wasn't on the phones. I was adding in people's details to get their ADSL internet installed. That's what
Right.
It was easy though. But anyway, I saved up and bought a nice drum kit. That was basically the reason I did it.
Yeah.
And then after that, I worked retail for years, which was cool. That was fun. And then I worked in a bar in St Kilda, which was fun. And then I started working for Monster. I joined their ambassador team, which was like the funnest job ever. You just drive around in a big truck and give cans to people and drop off cases to athletes and stuff. Yeah, and then mate, I work full time for Monster now. I've been there for 10 years as a
right. Oh, you're still there now? Fantastic.
Still there,
cool.
Yeah, still there now. Yeah, so they've been cool throughout the whole thing. You know, they've had big support for me, really.
I was going to say, I'm just thinking now, looking back at some of the videos I've seen over the last week, and those Monster signs there, and like even some of those trucks, and the trucks in the are we allowed to talk about this one?
The Supercross episode. Yeah,
Monster. That's
I mean,
episode 3. Yeah,
Monster supported that episode. So an example of kind of like how I work with them. So I look after Victoria, basically myself and another guy. We look after our distributor Coca-Cola. So it's a full-on job. So we're working with them every day. But Monster have always said to me, you know, you're a big part of the brand. You are the brand. They look at me as like the brand guy down here. And they just fully support me. They put me on all of their events. I generally always play drums at the events. So like the UFC, the Supercross, V8, whatever the event is, if the big Monster setup's there, you'll generally see me playing drums there.
Wow.
So they're really cool like that. They've always let me go on tour. They've always let me teach drums and kind of not got in the way of that. You know, some employees wouldn't really want you running your own business on the side like that. That takes up so much time. They've always been cool. They've like at that Supercross gig with the Zummo show, you know, I had to chase up budget to pay for some of that stuff because those drum risers that you see are super expensive to hire. So expensive, man, like a lot. So Monster paid for mine, you know, because I was like, shit, I really... You know, because initially, if we can talk about that show now, or we can talk about it later. But
we will. We'll talk. We'll get more into the detail of it later. But we're just on the Monster thing. Yeah, that's cool.
So they've been cool, man. I've done heaps with them. Heaps of fun company. You know, it works well with my brand and the bands I'm in. Like I'm on brand for that brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. Congratulations. That's cool, man. Yeah, that kind of. Yeah, that's starting to make sense of all the different things that you've got going on. That's cool. It's a good link. Cool link. Okay. So that's left uni. You've told me about the jobs. 28 days now. Let's talk about that run or the start of that run, and then how things sort of built from that.
Yep. Yeah. So 28 days. I specifically remember getting asked to join the band. The guitarist Hep was at the bar I was working at. He used to frequent that. And he invited me to play drums for the guys, and I accepted, as you would. Massive fan of 28 Days. I grew up listening to 28 Days, probably my favourite Australian band, like as I was growing up.
Yep.
I have a memory of I used to tape Rage when I was a kid, and they had a song called Goodbye, which was super catchy, and I specifically remember taping that. Rage would always put like 5 good songs together, or the genre that I liked. You know, it'd be Blink-182, 28 Days, Body Jar, you know, bands like that. And I specifically remember I taped it and listened to that song, and I ran out and got my dad and said, you got to listen to this chorus. This is the sickest chorus ever. It's real simple, but I specifically remember that that moment.
Sorry, Dan, what's the name of that song?
It's called Goodbye.
Oh, Goodbye, yeah, okay. Can we
Goodbye,
have Have a look.
Yeah, have a listen to that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a belter.
Thought I left you all behind, put you all out of my mind, but I made it clear that I just didn't want to be you can find.
Right. So you've shown Dad this.
Yeah, when it hits the chorus, it's just it's a great chorus. And as their drummer now, looking at the chorus, this is one of my favorite songs to play with them. And arrangement wise, it's sick. The drumming, each chorus has a different drum beat, which is just cool because that doesn't really happen that much.
Right.
Yeah. So that was a big move jumping into them because they were really, quite a successful band and a well-known band around Australia. And I've been with them ever since, and we're still playing and we're still doing great shows. And, they're a rare band that has longevity, and we haven't released anything since I've been in the band. So we're literally playing the 3 albums that everyone kind of loved from the early 2000s. They still hit home now. We're being able to play gigs for 20 years off the same songs, which is
That's pretty awesome. You haven't got that pressure of having to, write and release something, and then that extra pressure too of that album not being as good as the last one and people not liking it, and then you lose fans, and thinking that's great. What a great scenario that is.
It is, man. They were so, they are so good, but the albums they wrote back then were so good and so successful. One of them went gold before it even was released. It went gold. It went gold on pre-sales.
Pre-sales, wow.
It's insane. They were a massive band, and I guess given the size that they were and just their catalog was strong, it's just given them longevity to keep playing. Which is all them. Obviously, I wasn't in the band back then, so it's nothing to do with me. It's all credit to them just being good songwriters and a good band. But, mate, it's crazy. We're still rocking good shows. We're getting put on good festivals, and we haven't released anything properly since 2001 or something.
Yeah, right. And there's no talk of any new stuff?
We talk about it a little bit. I would like to do an EP or an album with them. I would like to have my name on something and just make it awesome.
Of course.
And that's the same with Behind Crimson Eyes. We've been talking about that. I'd like to do one album with them or EP or something and just make it sick, like just do the coolest shit across the board that we can do, and not even worry about recreating it live or anything. Just make a sick studio album and just drop the mic, and whatever. If people like it, they like it. If they don't, who cares?
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So, 28 days. Let's can we talk about how Bliss N Eso sort of came into the picture and how you got into that scene?
Yep. Yeah, sure. So I guess 28 days, we're a band that just kind of play when we get an offer, and we don't really push that hard. We're not writing new albums or anything like that. So that kind of is what it is, and I'm lucky to be in that band and in that situation. But I was younger. I was 27 when I joined Bliss N Eso as their drummer. And at that point, I was just hungry. I was playing gigs with a DJ. We're doing all the Monster Energy gigs. Behind Crimson Eyes wasn't doing anything. I was in 28 days, but we were just doing gigs here and there. So I was really hungry to get onto something else because I just wanted to go.
Yep.
And I knew Bliss from Bliss N Eso through a friend of mine. We'd had a couple of beers one night, and I had some drum videos that I'd done prior to that we showed him on the night, and I could see his mind ticking over.
Yeah.
Because they were good. They were really good drum videos. Anyway, they started kind of playing with the band. They had a band from New Zealand. So Bliss's cousin is the keyboard player, and Bliss's cousin's wife is the singer. So they're like these incredible musicians from New Zealand. And they had a drummer that they knew from New Zealand that came over and did the first kind of band gig with Bliss N Eso. Bliss N Eso did the big day out, 2013 maybe. And they had Darren from Shapeshifter. He was their drummer. Yeah. So they kind of started playing with the drummer, and then Darren from Shapeshifter obviously had Shapeshifter in it, and the next run of shows that Bliss N Eso had, he couldn't do because he was in Shapeshifter, and that was his priority.
Yeah.
So then the position became vacant, I guess, and I was in Bliss's mind, and he hit me up and basically said, I want you to learn these songs. So before that, I had two things going, right? My friend called me and he's like, I think Bliss N Eso, I think Bliss is going to call you. There's something coming. And I was like, I've heard this before. It's, you know what it's like. Fuck, it'd be awesome if it happens. But I was thinking it might be, maybe they want me to record some drums on one of their songs or something, or maybe it's one of their side projects that they want me to record. I didn't think it was going to be actually the gig.
Yep.
Just because of being in that music industry for so long, shit like that doesn't often happen. Mm-hmm. And often when someone says it, it doesn't often happen. You know what it's like. It's just heavily stacked against you normally. So anyway, that was one potential thing. And then there was these things called rapper tags, where at the time rappers would record a video, they would rap like a freestyle verse and tag another rapper in it. And it was a big thing at the time. And my mate, who was a videographer who I met through Monster, was doing a video for the Rapper 360. And he was in contact with me saying, I'm going to try to get you in this 360 clip. I think it'd be sick for you to do a drum thing while he's rapping. I've hired like a private jet and all this shit. Like I was like, okay, I've got two things potentially going to happen. The 360 thing didn't happen. And I had the one left. And I was like, fuck, I hope this happens. I'm so close to just getting in there. And I remember the phone call. Bliss rang me. Actually, before that, he asked me to send some songs. So I recorded the songs to the studio. I got a videographer in to film it. I did 4 songs instead of 3, and I kind of played them laid back because my mate told me that Eso, the other guy in Bliss N Eso, didn't want someone too overbearing and to interrupt with things too much. So I kind of played it just as it was, didn't go too crazy, sent the videos off, didn't hear back for like 3 days. And I was like, shit, they don't like it. They don't like it. Shit. So I went back in, just put a GoPro up, and I recorded another 3 or 4 songs of me just kind of playing them how I'd like to play them. Sent them that, and then they liked them, and then Bliss called me and said, we'd love to have you on the tour. So I still remember what I was doing when he called me and whatnot for that. But I guess, I think at the time it was between me and another guy. And the other guy didn't record videos or anything like that. So again, it was just being proactive. Proactive always wins.
And even
that's
even having that because you just the second shot at it with the GoPros, you just came with that idea yourself. No, I really want this. I'm going to push this on.
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
I was like, shit, I've blown it because the first round I didn't really play how I'd like to play. I didn't put that much personality in it or whatever. I just kind of played what was there, what I thought they would like. And I've never even spoken to them about which ones they watched or whatever. Yeah. But I guess, in my head, I was like, shit, you should probably show them another way of how you play. And I did. And, I guess it paid off whichever video they worked, or maybe they got both videos and they're like, geez, this guy's keen. This guy just gets shit done. He's not lazy.
Or he's not going to leave us alone until we give him the gig. So that's
yeah, exactly. There's a fine line between showing someone that you're keen and you're proactive, and you being a bit of a pest and a bit annoying and a bit of a punisher. There's a fine line there that you've got to. It's an invisible line that you've got to play. And it's also they were at that point still are hugely successful. They were about to do a tour. The tour that I was trying out for was like, up to 9,000 people a show for like their headline show. It was huge. It was a lot of responsibility and, so obviously it's a prime position. So, I had to have my drumming together. I had to have, and I guess playing in the other bands they knew helped because they knew that I'd toured and I'd been in bands that they had played with. They'd played festivals with Behind Crimson Eyes. They obviously knew 28 Days, so I'd already had that kind of cooking for me. I wasn't just a random that hadn't really played much before.
Did
So
you
it
have
all
the
kind
support?
of helped. Yeah.
Yeah, did you have support of some drum companies and cymbal companies at that stage, or did that come a little bit later? Because maybe that helped as well.
Well, the thing that really I did have support. Yeah, I had all the ones I got now, Zildjian, Vic Firth, Remo. I didn't have Pearl at that point.
Yep.
But I got all of that when I joined BCE because their previous drum had it, and BCE hooked me up with it basically.
Great, awesome.
Which was awesome. But yeah, what really helped was I had people that knew Bliss N Eso, that had Bliss N Eso's respect. So there's a guy, Dave Alice, who was he worked at Monster as the event manager, and he had a relationship with Bliss N Eso at that point in time, and he was putting a word in for me to Bliss. He's like, yeah, DK's great, reliable, good guy, easy to get along with. So I had that avenue going. The DJ I played with also worked at Monster. He also knew Bliss and their manager at the time, and he was putting in a word for me.
Great.
A big one was that at that point in time, they had a videographer director who was doing all of their film clips. He was working full-time for Bliss N Eso. I knew him through the extreme sports world. He would come to the events and he would film motocross and stuff like that, and he would always see me playing, and because I was theatric with my arms and shit moving around, he would always film me and be like, you look good on camera. You're entertaining. So he was then going back to them and saying, you need to get this guy, have a look at this, he's great. So I literally had 3 people that knew them, and probably the biggest one being the videographer, director guy, Alan Hardy, getting in their ear saying, you need this guy, because it all helps. Because if you don't know them, it really helps when you have an in, someone knows them and they respect that person, and they listen to them a little more. So I had a few ins.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's talk about the actual technical side of things of playing that gig now. So I've got a few questions. Pardon me. So do you play to tracks into a click track, or is a lot of that sampled stuff coming from the DJ or other parts on the stage?
Great. Yeah, great question. So when I initially started, it was the DJ controlled all of the tracks. So he was using what program does he use? Serato. Serato, I think. I think it's Serato.
Right.
Now, Serato, what you can do with Serato is the DJ can, when the decks are spinning, one of those decks is the track. The DJ can stop it. He can scratch it. He can move it. So at that point in time, Ableton, one of the programs you could do that, the other one you couldn't. So he used it was all about the DJ. So there was no click tracks. And it's very difficult to be honest. So there was no countings, no click track. So I had to listen to the beat and play on top of the beat. And that's super challenging to try and not have flams, because there's kicks in the track. I'm kicking at the same time. I had to learn the tracks exactly kind of how they are, and then add little bits and pieces here and there.
Yep.
But yeah, that was extremely challenging, and horrifying in terms of coming in early or coming in late, or very difficult. And I mean, that was how we were back then.
Yep.
Now we've shifted to, we have track and click, and the DJ cuts. So he's like an instrument now, as opposed to dropping the tracks and all that kind of stuff, because the band, it's as you know, it's near impossible to all come in on the one when there's a break for 4 bars and the boys are rapping, which they speed up and slow down as you naturally do. And then you got to sit back and count, do your very best to count 4 bars and then come back in on the one. It is, oh, mate. It's a lesson in timing, but that's how it started. And it was hard, mate. Very hard.
Yeah, that's cool. Let's talk about your setup now. And I mentioned earlier when we were watching that the Perfect Reason drum solo thing. You got your cymbals really high, and
Yeah.
seeing Travis Barker back in that concert,
Yep.
the way that he's very minimal with the drums that he has his
Yep.
cymbals sort of high and flat,
Yep.
and most of that is I guess is for a look. Did you see that at the time and think, oh, that looks pretty cool?
Yeah.
And then once and then of course you're doing the stuff for Monster, and you were saying too, it's all about not just the performance, but how you look, and the flailing arms and
Yep.
Did you take that exact same approach to the way you had your setup into Bliss N Eso?
Yeah, so I played that setup for ages, and I had the high cymbals, and I liked it because it was like that. You'd be playing and you'd be forced to kind of like move a lot, which I liked. Initially, I took that into Bliss N Eso with that kind of setup. So back then, a lot of their stuff was kind of rocky in a way, so it wasn't too far different to what I was already doing. But now, as I've developed, my style's changed a little bit. My tastes has changed a little bit, and my knowledge has changed a little bit. So like now I use a lot of stacked cymbals. I use a lot of splashes. I use a lot of little accented cymbals, so I'm not too overbearing. Like if you're playing big 18s and 19s and 20s crashes and stuff, especially in rehearsal rooms and stuff, it's just way too much for the hip hop. So I use a lot of like 16-inch effect cymbals, the 14-inch effect cymbals. So when you crash them, you still get the impact of a crash, but it's just it goes really quickly.
You know what? I was watching. Sorry, I was watching the Drumlife videos with my wife last night on our big TV, going through them, and she was asking me about the cymbals with the holes in them and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah.
So I gave her a bit of an education on the effect cymbals, and why is he playing those? And I said that same thing. I said you get that impact of the psh, and then it's gone.
Yeah, it's great, mate. And for like hip hop, like I've kind of dove right into that. So I did the big tour with the guys when I started, and then I did another tour with them years later on their next album. And the next album was all about stacks and splashes and catching little vocal accents, which I learned off Stevie Cat Jr., who plays for Seth Century. He's such a sick, he's a New Zealand lad, such a sick drummer. I had some jams with him, and he was like, he was showing me what he does and how he catches accents and stuff. And I was like, that's such a sick concept. So I started kind of doing that a lot with Bliss N Eso. And, obviously you can't be too overbearing when we're catching vocal accents and little licks that the boys are doing. You want it to be subtle on subtle little things. So it's like a subtle nod to it, as opposed to like bashing the shit out of it and kind of ruining it. So I've moved a lot to that. I might have one big crash at a gig or something like that now, and the rest are all pretty much effect cymbals.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
Now let's talk a little bit about Drumlife and not just Drumlife, but the videography that you're into, the audio.
Yep.
I mean, what is I find really impressive is just the quality of the videos.
Yeah.
Audio and visual that you do.
Yep.
It's got a real. It's kind of that. It reminds me a little bit of the Gymkhana style type of video. Yeah. Which is, to me, it seems like it's on that level of
Fully
of visual, and because I love watching those Ken Block car videos, and then once I was going through and watching your drum videos, it's to me it's visually it's on a similar kind of level, it's really cool.
That's epic.
Yeah. No, so when did you start really thinking about the importance of how it's supposed to look and because I know we were talking a little bit before about back in the sort of mid to late 2000s, there wasn't a lot of sort of drum cover videos and stuff on, and now these days there's just so much content, and to me, I know when I'm going through stuff, if it doesn't catch me straight away with a good sound or look, I'm gone. Yeah. So it's got and how much thought have you sort of put into that?
Yeah, good question. So first thing about that, Gymkhana, I actually played drums with a DJ at a Gymkhana event with Ken Block. So
Really? Wow.
I'll try to find you some photos, but basically there was a stage, right? So we had so if you're looking at the front of the stage, there was drums, DJ and an MC. It was at a monster event. So we were playing on one side. So you watch, we had a massive LED screen behind us. We would play there a couple of times a day. And then behind that LED wall, you could just walk around. Ken Block's car was there. So before he would take off to do his Gymkhana on the racetrack, he would walk from the monster truck through the crowd while we're playing. He'd do a bit of a signing, like he'd get up on stage and sign while we're playing. Then he'd jump in his car, go do his thing, come back, literally pull his car up behind my drum kit, and then we'd start playing again. Right. So
which car? Can I ask which car it was? Which car did he?
I reckon it was a Ford. We're talking, mate. We're talking 2015. I reckon. Okay.
Yep.
Maybe 14. Yeah, we're talking a while ago. I reckon it was a Ford Focus or something.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, so yeah, I was well aware of Gymkhana. Like I love that style of content. So anyway, I've gotten lost there, but.
Sorry, I threw I threw you with the what kind of car question it was. You're playing on the stage and he would walk through the crowd and
So I mean, so that was cool. I was well aware of his stuff, like the epic content he was creating, and I was always intrigued that he'd created basically something out of nothing. So he was in the sense that he was a rally car driver, and then just with a bit of creativity and a good team and some cool concepts. You know, not a bit of creativity, a lot of creativity. He created a whole thing, like a whole online web series, a phenomenon of this insane content, which in theory is just a car driving around doing skids and stuff. But
exactly,
it's the way it's put together and the epicness of it makes it viral and insanely cool. And then he's turned that into an event, which he travels around the world doing. So I was definitely around that kind of stuff, which is why it's cool that you've mentioned that, because I never really thought about that potentially having an impact on what we've been doing. But it's essentially, the same kind of thing. It's like we've got an incredible director, Peter John, which is almost the most important thing. We, work with great live sound guys. I think that one of the most important things is having live sound on the drum video. I think you can go and set your drum kit up on a mountain or whatever, but if it's not live, it's kind of like, what is this? Like, what's going on? But if it's live, it brings a whole new element of like, oh shit, they're playing this live and it sounds sick and they're frigging on a boat or whatever. It's like, those little 1%ers all add up.
Before we go, sorry, interrupt. Before we go sort of deeper into the nuts and bolts of that, for the people that don't know, can you give a bit of a synopsis of what Drumlife is?
Sure.
Just so people know exactly what we're talking about here.
So basically it's myself and Frank Zummo from Sum 41. We have put together a drum series with our director, Peter John. And what it is, it's based on, the concept is myself and Frank, we travel to a different location in each episode and we link up with a drummer or drummers around their local town, and it can be anything. We could be going to a restaurant with them. We could be going to their favorite spot in their city, hang out with the drummer, and then we play drums, generally in some kind of an iconic location. That's pretty much it in a nutshell. So it's a show for drum nerds, and not only drum nerds, but just people just to watch something cool. But yeah, I mean, we got 4 episodes done. We're releasing our second one with Adrian Young from No Doubt this week coming up, which I don't know when this comes out, but it's like Feb 15 or something. I mean, and then, we're going to try to do more as soon as we can. We've got big plans to get overseas and do more. So that's pretty much what it is. It's just, and Frank's on board with it because same reason you said, it's different. It's extremely good quality. And where it kind of comes from me is, as you said, everyone's doing drum videos. There's a lot of insanely good drummers out there. I don't really see myself competing with like Eric Moore or bloody Styx Taylor or someone like that. Like, they're freaks. There's no point I'm not going to stand out in that field. So let's do something a bit creative. Let's do something cool. Let's do something that no one else is doing. Let's turn some heads that way, which is kind of where it's come from.
That's really cool. Yeah, so I've seen I've seen 3 of those episodes. Obviously, the first one's already out.
Yep.
The one that's coming out, well, actually, when this podcast is out, that episode will already be out, and it's Adrian Young, and that's cool. I won't give it away. You got to go and watch it.
Yeah.
That's the whole point. So links to all that stuff will be in the show notes of this. And then the third one is you're at the stadium in Melbourne.
Yep.
And you're playing on those platforms that we were talking about before,
Yes.
the expensive platforms, and you're playing with Ben from Parkway Drive.
Yes. So
Yeah.
I mean, these are the coolest things I've ever done by far.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like that, the Adrian Young episode was mind-boggling because I grew up. He was one of my idols growing up. Like he's probably one of the most recognized drummers in the last 20 years. Like no doubt, we're literally one of the biggest bands in the world. And each of those members, no doubt, it's one of those bands where you kind of know what they all look like. You know, there's a few bands where you kind of know what everyone looks like. You know, it's one of those bands. It's like you see me, like, shit, that's the dude from No Doubt. So, you know, being able to go and just soak up his vibe and go to his house and play drums with him and listen to him play drums and kind of become friends with him is it's cool, man. It's really cool.
And you guys got to play. You and Zummo got to play on a couple of his sort of iconic drum kits as well, which he explains. I won't give it away, but
So like he has a warehouse full of drums, and like, you know, there was 3 Aussies that rocked up to his house to produce this show. He didn't know any of us. He knows Frank very well, but doesn't know us. And we got there before Frank, and you know, he'd already gone to get the drums, brings them back to his house, invites us into his house. We're setting up drums. He's super cool. We meet his family. You know, we're there all day, and it's like he didn't get paid or anything like that. It's just him being a good dude, giving his time to us, which was so cool, man. And he recorded everything, mixed it. He did all of that, so that's what he does now. He does a lot of recording and producing and stuff. Yeah. So he did all of that just for free, just cool dude. And it was cool because I left there just feeling good. I was like, this guy's he's a living legend, and he's just given up his day for us to. He's been nice. He's just been a cool ass dude, fully given us his time and energy. Especially for me, because I didn't necessarily know him. I was pretty blown away by it. Yeah. It was a good lesson. I just took away from it that, you know, you want to give to the next lot. Like if there's the younger buck coming up that's trying to do something, and you're in a position where you can kind of help them out, they can leverage your name a bit or whatever to do it, because he didn't have to do it. And maybe I was like, shit, I really appreciate that. Yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah,
really cool. Yeah, looking forward to seeing more of those. That's for sure. Yeah. So let's hope the cities sort of open up. So like plans going forward for that. You know, due to the international lockdowns and stuff, do you have plans to do some more of those episodes within Australia or even New Zealand even?
Yeah, we do. I mean, we've got a lot of plans. It just depends what we can do. I know that we've got. Yeah, we do. We've got a run set out for the next lot of episodes. But yeah, if we can't do that, I reckon we'll just tweak it and change it and do something, you know, like there's always a way around things. Like episode 4 is like Frank's in Los Angeles, I'm in Melbourne, and we kind of bring it together. So that's, right. Yeah, you haven't seen that. It's like,
no.
Yeah, so there's still ways to do it which are creative and cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we'll just kind of keep chipping away at it, I think.
That's cool. Exciting.
Yeah.
All right, man. Let's talk about DK Drums, your drum school, and how you started that up, and talk about how that's sort of been progressing and just, yeah. So where did obviously with your father being an educator, and you were saying he had his content, have you sort of taken some of that into your school, or have you just created something new? Oh, okay.
Yeah, heaps. So I literally taught his course basically, and then I'd tweak it with my own things here and there. I did that for years, probably 5 or 6 years. And during COVID, this last lockdown, the long lockdown, I've rewritten everything. So there's things in his course which were amazing. It's a great course, but there was things that I would have added or would have made it flow a little differently. So I've changed it and I've rewritten the course basically, and I've done videos for every exercise. So where I'm at with that right now is if you've got 50 sheets of music with each one kind of different topic or a different learning, there might be 20 beat examples on each. I've rewritten all of that, and I've done a video lesson about the topic, what it is, and then I've done, say, 20 beat examples at 2 different tempos, done videos to all of that. So I've literally got like 800 videos for this course, which I've been talking about doing forever. And I was telling my dad back when he was alive, I was like, I'm gonna put your course online. You know, it'll work really well. It's an epic course, and and I finally, like, lockdown gave me the time to do it, because I would have never had the chance to do it, man. Because it's literally taken me every day for 7 or 8 months to get this far. I'm nearly kind of done uploading everything and having it available. So that's where it's at right now. I think I'll be making a lot of kind of moves online with it, I think is where it's at, and maybe some online live lessons to coincide with courses and things like that. That's kind of where I want to take it, because it's just me here and my time's taken up. I'm full basically. So the next step, I think, is bringing it online and just trying to share it with
so you're saying, because I was going to say, how can people come and study with DK drums? But so you're basically you're filled up, or your spots are filled.
Pretty much, yeah.
Taking it, yeah.
Yeah, I've been filled up for a while, and I just work so much. So I work all day for Monster, and then I come in here and do Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays till late, and then I do all day Saturday and most of the time Sunday. So it's great, and I'll continue to teach, but I think bringing it online is a good move. And everyone, you know, a lot of drummers talk about doing that, but when you, oh God, there's so much. I've been working so hard on it. It's insane. It's ridiculous.
Just the video. I mean, you need, you know, your video needs to be right. Your audio needs to be right. You know, talking about syncing stuff up.
Mate, it's insane. So
sorry. Go ahead.
I got new cameras. I got new lighting.
Right.
I got this space, obviously. And then it's like, how do you talk to camera? You record yourself talking to camera, and it's like, oh, this is terrible. Go back. You've got to learn how to talk to camera. You've got to learn how your lessons work, how it's like, how are people going to take it in? How does it flow? How do you go from one thing to the next thing? Oh, my God. And then the platform itself, how do you upload it? How do people access it?
So are you sending stuff out to friends to test it?
I'm running my students through it now.
Are your students right? And they're able to come back with some feedback?
It's more I'm sending them the lessons. Yeah, I'm sending them the stuff, and it's working well. The video stuff's a good addition to it, because previously it's just book stuff. So if you don't really know how to read, or you forget how to read, you go home and you're like, don't know what it is. But if you have the video with it, it helps when people learn. So I think that's a big part of it.
Very cool. I forgot to ask you earlier about Unwritten Law, which is another band that you're tagging around with at the moment. Let's talk a bit about that. Yeah,
so at the start of 2020, Unwritten Law came out to Australia and needed a drummer for the tour, and reached out to myself to do that. So that was a big one, mate, because Unwritten Law is my favourite band of all time.
Is that right?
Yes,
cool.
San Diego punk rock, same hometown as Unwritten Law. So as a kid, I was Blink-182, Unwritten Law, and I favoured Unwritten Law, and I still do listen to Unwritten Law more than I do Blink-182. I feel like it's just a little more, the music's more classy, I would say. It's like the guitarists and stuff have always been really good, epic songs. So that was a bit of a full circle moment for me, because when I was actually 15, me and my best mate went to see Unwritten Law in Geelong, and it was an over 18 gig, and we got denied at the door. So we walked up. I actually drew a moustache on my I used mum's makeup to paint my bum fluff black. And we walked up, we walked out to the line, and the security guards shut us down. And anyway, we went out the front, and Unwritten Law pulled up in their van, and the singer Scott got out, and he's like, "Yeah, I need these guys backstage passes." And he pointed at me and my mate, and we ended up going backstage at this gig. It was Unwritten Law, Sum 41, and Goldfinger are 3 bands that I frothed on, and 2 of them that I do stuff with now in a way.
Yeah.
That changed my perspective of bands and stuff as well, and it blew my mind, because at that point in time, like, he still is a living legend, but he was like a god to me when I was 15, you know what I mean? So to be able to meet them and have that experience, and like hospitality, like he brought us in under his wing, a couple of underage kids. It was sick.
Do you think it was the shot of? Did he see maybe the effort that you made to draw the moustache?
Maybe.
This guy's got to get him back. He's giving it a shot.
Oh, he's bloody, his mascara's he's gone
It's starting to run. Quick, get him inside.
Yeah. But that was cool. That was sick. So I told him that story. Which is incredible, man, really. So that was all time to play those songs. Their catalogue of songs, like the set list, was from top to bottom, just bangers. Like it was cool. That was a good learning curve as well, because they don't play to a click track. They play live, and they go off feel. So some of their songs aren't really the speed of the album. Some they'll speed the chorus up a bit. They'll drop down like tempo in some of the softer bits. So that was interesting. That was a cool learning curve, because the guitarist Chris he's like really onto everything. So like if I'm playing a song, he'll be like, drop it down a bit. It's a bit slow, or bring the tempo up in the chorus. And that was a different learning curve, because with 28 Days, those guys are cool. I just kind of go haywire and they just follow me. Bliss N Eso is like a click track. This was a band where there was a lot of feel involved, and they were pretty big on that. And even like I'd have to watch the singer Scott. He dances with his arms and stuff, and he dictates the tempo with just a couple of arm moves. So like we'll be going into a section or out of a section or whatever, and he'll do these kind of moves, which I learned as we went, that this is what he wants, or we're in a soft section, and he might do this with the mic, and it's like, okay, well, we're about to come back in. So it was interesting, playing wise, just playing with a band that kind of rolls like that, which is feel based more than anything. It was cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Are you going to have more opportunity to play with those guys, or was that just for this?
Mate, I thought so. I thought that I could see that turning out, like, because they're popular in Australia. They always come to Australia like once every year or two. I was kind of thinking that maybe I would have been their Australian drummer. And they'd get potentially someone else to do the American stuff. They have a guy from Strung Out that plays for them in America. They do have their original drummer Wade, who still plays. But they mix it up a little bit. So that's what I was thinking would have potentially happened. Which would have been sick, but we'll see what happens moving forward.
See what happens.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. All right. Last night I sent you a message.
Yep.
And I asked you to choose only one song that's had the biggest impact on you. Yep.
Yeah, it's a good question. It was I wasn't sure which angle to take with that.
That's the idea. It gets the people thinking, that one. So don't rush your answer. So you tell us what that song is and why it's had that impact, and we'll play it, and then we'll listen to it Talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, in some ways, I've spoken about it somewhat already, but it was all the small things by Blink-182. Reason being, it was one of the first songs I'd ever covered in a band. So, it taught me song structure, taught me how to play in time, taught me how to play with other musicians, what a verse, a chorus, a bridge was. It was also, I saw Blink-182 when I was 12 at that concert I spoke about earlier. So, it shaped me in that way. It was one of the reasons why I decided to be a drummer. It was also at that point a drum part which was very well constructed, for one, well put together. It had a lot of different parts to it, which was cool to listen to. It wasn't too over the top, but it was a musical drum part, which is kind of the direction that I took, really. I love that kind of drumming. Yeah, so I guess, at that point, it taught me a lot about music. And as I was saying before as well, my dad was showing my band how it all works. Like, he'd figure out the chords, show the guitarists. So it all came kind of back to that, learning how to be in a band and how to put a song together and how to play live. And it was also the first song I ever performed with a band. We played it at our assembly. And
right,
there's 500 kids there, and the place bloody erupted. It was the first time I ever played, and at the end of it, people go mental, and you're like, "Oh shit, this is cool." Like, people liked it, you know what I mean? So it's it's all of those things, really. This song, that's why it's probably one of the most important tracks for me.
Cool. All right, let's have a listen.
Let's go.
At the end of this verse, how the time slows as they're leading into the pre-chorus. Slows down and then...
She left me roses by the stairs. Surprises let me know she cares.
Only so subtle, but it's there,
So I will not go. Turn the lights off. Carry me home.
It's so short too, isn't it? It's a short one.
Short, mate. A few things like that snare tone is just popping, cracking.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
do you know who produced that album? I
think it was Jerry. Is it Jerry Finn?
Okay, let me Google that.
Have a sus. Yeah, it's just a well crafted drum part. Like some little tricks in there. Drums sound huge. Nice little fills. Nothing too over the top. Tom part's epic. Great song
Jerry
for people
Finn.
to learn. Jerry Finn, yeah.
Jerry Finn, yeah, very cool. All right, DK, Dan Kerby, man, thanks for spending your Valentine's morning with me. It's been lovely. No, it's been cool to talk to you, man. I've been wanting to do this for a while, and I'm glad we're doing it. I hope when you get down to Sydney some stage, we can catch up and have a beer and have a yarn in person, and that'd be really cool.
Absolutely, man. No, thanks heaps for having me, mate. I've seen you pop up all over the I think it's Facebook and Instagram. I always see you pop up in there. So, yes. Mate, it's good to finally have a good chat to you and share some old tales. So,
yeah, that's
mate,
cool.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Sweet as. Good luck with Drumlife and your school and everything else, all the bands and stuff. And yeah, look forward to continually following your career, man. So it's been cool.
Awesome.
All right,
Thanks,
DK.
heaps, man.
Thanks, brother.
Appreciate it, man.
Take it easy, man.
Cheers, mate.
Sweet. See ya.